All right, good evening, everybody. The theme tonight is somebody come get these kids. But the real theme is parents helping parents in light of this coronavirus challenge. And many parents are, for the first time in their lives, really as involved in their child's education as they've ever been. And many parents are, and you'll meet some tonight, many parents are having to work from home and also become kind of surrogate educator from home. And it has created, I think, an unprecedented challenge. But I think what you'll learn tonight is that there are also unprecedented opportunities. To begin this discussion and to really help us understand the big picture in the context is someone that I consider a personal friend, but more importantly, someone that I consider to be a great educational leader. He is really the first person of his stature that has his testimony that comes from his background and who has a unique sensitivity to the people who need public education to work for them most. And so, without any further ado, I want to welcome Commissioner Lamont Repole. Commissioner, thank you so much for taking time to help us begin this conversation. I want to commend you for your leadership. No other commissioner has had this responsibility. And I was hoping tonight you could not only talk about the importance of this kind of conversation, but help us understand from the state level the awesome task that you've had to embrace as schools have been closed now for a number of weeks and will be closed for a number of weeks. What on earth is your day like? I mean, what kinds of issues do you have to face, and what do you see the future bringing?
Okay. Good evening, Reverend Soares and fellow panelists and parents and family members out there. Dr. Soares, I'd like to thank you for extending this invitation to participate in the parenting program. Someone please come and get these kids to discuss the current state of New Jersey's education. Pastor, we're going through unprecedented times. Please know that the Department of Education, along with Governor Murphy, will remain steadfast and unmovable in our commitment to provide the best, and I say that, the best possible instruction for our students under these unique educational circumstances. While our brick and mortar schools are closed, we must keep our hearts, our minds, and our arms open in our remote learning of our children. These extraordinary circumstances call on all of us, me, my colleagues in the department, the church, pastors, superintendents, principals, paraprofessionals, and parents to reach new heights of innovation, collaboration, and mutual respect. And what I ask is that the educational community give itself some grace. Adjusting to these unprecedented times, Pastor, requires unprecedented acts of leadership and humanity. I'm tremendously proud of and impressed by the educational community and parents for meeting these complex challenges in such a short period of time. You indicated a few weeks. We know that issues of equity, Pastor, equity and access have heightened during the time of crisis. My team at the DOE has been gathering information using surveys, conference calls, meetings to kind of understand the challenges our students and their families face during the extraordinary times. But more importantly, though, Pastor, to share that information available for resources, for educators and professionals, for us to grow and learn from what we're doing. And as a former superintendent, I understand that we need to support our educators as well as our families who are quickly gaining a great appreciation for the challenges teachers face as they take on a role of teacher at home. And that's why it's apropos come and get these kids while juggling plenty of personal and their own professional responsibilities. That's why we're working to chip away at the digital divide and make sure that all students have access to digital learning resources. See, these are so many tools that our students who cannot participate in virtual learning due to digital devices and or internet access. We will continue working with the federal government, foundations, legislators, corporations, community leaders, local districts to increase access for every student to make sure we all can get connected virtually. Before students can focus on learning, though, we know that their basic needs must be met, like nutrition and social and emotional support. Our proactive approach has ensured that all eligible students receive breakfast and lunch. Even though their school days have moved from buildings to homes, we're leveraging our field service led by Assistant Commissioner Abdul Halim Salam approach to make sure that we visit food distribution sites at schools, churches, to make sure that the food is delivered safely. And for all our students, district and around the state, we're using their nurses, counselors, and our health professionals to increase mental health services and emotional support and assist with wellness checks, because we understand that at times like this in isolation, a lot of our students are lonely, and we want to provide that support, not just for our students, but for our parents as well. So we have something we call the 3 R's, Pastor, to remote learning. The first R is routine. It's important to replicate the structure and predictability that your child would experience at school, such as possible. You want to provide them with a routine. You should create a schedule with your child each week that includes physical activity, academic hours, eating and quiet time, office hours for parents, and most importantly, quality family time. Then there's the second are resources. Take advantage of resources that are available to you, like this program. Our Department of Education website features a student wellness tab that houses information on social and emotional learning for you and your family, including articles about talking about COVID-19 with your children. So just for note, our Department of Education website can be found at www.nj.gov/education. And the last R, Pastor, is release. And you talk about this a lot. Self-care is not selfish or indulgent. It's how you keep ourselves to ensure that we are physically, emotionally, mentally capable of being there for our children. And quarantining can be stressful, and it's imperative you take the time to reflect and release all that stress and tension from the week. Sometimes our mind and bodies just need a break. Meditation, mindfulness, and other replenishing activities are a great way to do that. So just know that you are never alone in this, and may God continue to bless each and every one of your households. Thank you, Pastor. I appreciate the opportunity you've given me to come here and to really just talk, but more so connect and to let the parents know that you have a partner in the Department of Education, but more so you have a partner within the school facilities. I'm sure if you look on your district websites, there's information. Do not hesitate to contact them, to talk to them. There's resources available for you. Guidance counselors are still on board, on record. So please take advantage of all the resources. But again, Pastor, thank you very much. And also, we will continue the conversation when it comes to inequities in education, because we know during times like this, they are heightened. So for us to make sure that we can try to find strategies to get more tech devices in kids' hands, and also make sure we have access to internet for kids. So I'll continue working with you on that, Pastor. Thank you.
Well, Commissioner, thank you so much. Just before you leave, we do have parents that are connected to our church and have children in school, and you're welcome to stay and listen and help answer questions. But I do want to say this. You led an effort that recently resulted in the State Board of Education giving special attention for accommodation of children who have special needs and disabilities. You, I'd like you to just say a word about that, because they are the ones who really need the system to work for them most, and the ones who have the greatest challenge. You want to say just a word about that?
Yeah, so I mentioned, when you have unprecedented times like this, Pastor, you need to have active leadership in humanity and understanding that there are inequities in our system. But ensuring that during this time of virtual learning is very hard for one of our students of different abilities or special needs to be able to access the services that they can. So the State Board of Education, we had modified emergency regulation, which allows now to have teletherapy. So now kids can get occupational therapy, speech therapy, one-on-one counseling over the phone, via computer. So that right there is one way that when we're thinking about equity across the board, it was important that we did not forget those individuals during these times. So I think it's important that when you have population of individual students, as well as ELLs, special education, at-risk students, we need to make sure, especially during these times like this, that they're not forgotten. And I think our regulations will allow nonprofit organizations and different groups and other service providers to come in and support districts, and more importantly, help parents kind of facilitate the learning themselves. So I look forward to working with anyone, more importantly, that will assist with our students. Like I said before, these regulations, I always talk about the intersection of policy and practice. And this is an example of the intersection between the policy, the legislation, and the regulation to change those things, to modify so all kids' needs are being met.
Well, listen, thank you. You have an enormous job. Many people don't know that we have more school districts in New Jersey than we have towns in New Jersey. And you have the unenviable task of balancing the needs of a diverse state. It's diverse economically, it's diverse ethnically, we're diverse geographically. 5 minutes from my house, there's a farm in one direction. 5 minutes from my house, there's public housing in another direction. So you have that task. You do it with grace and dignity and style. So thank you so much. And again, thank you for participating here. We will not only be a blessing to those who are with us live, but we will distribute this broadly to people who didn't have a chance to join us tonight. So thank you.
Well, thank you,
God
Pastor. I just want to give a shout out to my team, the Department of Education. You guys are doing an amazing job to support. Thank you, Pastor.
They are. They are very responsive. Every time I call, they call me right back and they have good information. So thank you. The person responsible for education throughout New Jersey, Commissioner Lamont Repole, go to his website, see what resources exist. My mantra is this: the only thing worse than not having what you need is not using what you have. And we have in Commissioner Repole a dynamic leader, and he with Governor Murphy, who I believe is a dynamic governor, are doing a great job impacting the lives of our children. Now, I've invited some parents to join us tonight to talk about their struggles, their strengths. And first, we have Lawrence Hibbert, an executive for a major consulting firm, and Sister Patrell Hibbert. Patrell is a special needs educator. Welcome to
Yes.
the Hibberts. And
Thank you so
Patrell,
much.
I'm going to need to talk to you offline quickly. But
Absolutely.
tell us, tell everybody a little bit about yourselves, and then
Sure.
where you are, how old your children are, what district they're in, and then give us a sense of your. I can't even imagine what your typical day looks like. But
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yes. Well, first of all, Pastor, thank you. Thanks to First Baptist for putting this together.
yeah,
We think that this is an important medium to be able to have this kind of discussion and
right.
dialogue. So we thank you for your leadership on that. As you said, my name is Lawrence Hibbert. This is my beautiful wife, Patrell Hibbert. We have two boys, Caleb and Joshua. Caleb is a freshman. He is at the Pennington School, and Joshua, our youngest, is a seventh grader at Princeton Academy, and they both are engaged in distance learning. As Pastor said, I currently am an entrepreneur, and I'm the managing partner for BCT Partners, a management and technology consulting firm. My wife, I'll let her introduce herself quickly.
Hello, yes, I'm Patrell Hibbert, and I have two beautiful children, as Lawrence mentioned. I'm actually an occupational therapist with the Princeton School District. I provide special services or related services to children with special needs.
So when we look at our typical day for us, our boys are at the age of 15 and 13. They wake up, generally speaking, on their own, generally with a little kick, but generally speaking on their own. They have their breakfast, but they jump into virtual classes. And so virtual classes for us mean two things. There's a combination of asynchronous classes where it's self-paced and it's self-directed. And they also have synchronous classes where they're meeting face-to-face on Zoom or some kind of platform to talk specifically to their teachers. They're typically in classes from about 8 to 1 or so. And that's their normal day. In the afternoon, they do a combination of homework. They may be working out a little bit, and then they're kind of interacting with their friends. For us, we're still working full time. I mean, I feel like my day is gotten even longer. I start probably at 7 and end at 7, and I'm trying to be more mindful of my time. Patrol is with the school districts. You can talk about your schedule.
Right. So my schedule, again, as we wake up and the boys get breakfast on their own, we're off into our different spaces.
Right.
The boys are in their room. I'm now in the dining room, and Larry's in the office. So we all have to find our own spaces per se. And it is a challenge for me working because I'm providing virtual learning and teaching through Zoom, the Zoom platform, and it's really difficult or it's challenging because of one, I'm used to that face-to-face contact with my students. I'm providing service to children with special needs who need that tactile or sensorial type learning where they're used to being close to them, the handling portion of it. And so that's really difficult to now see them, on this video chat or video platform. So I'm learning, they're learning, the parents are learning. So all of this is done while, of course, I'm taking care of the kids. And, it's a little easier, I would say, I preface to say lightly, it's a little easier when you're dealing with older children. Older children, I feel like you can kind of push them off to the side and say, okay, go over here. Where younger children, you have to attend to them hands on all the time. So that's difficult. But you know, the kids do come down every now and again. Oh, I got to ask you a question, but I have to say, oh no, I can't talk. You know, I'm with somebody right now, or I have to warn them before I actually get on to my my calls or sessions. So
Yeah. Wow. I
mhm.
can't even imagine. I can't imagine, but we're going to bring on the other panelists, let them introduce themselves, and then we'll have a full shot at answering questions from the audience and answering questions of it. I have enough questions for you to forget about the rest of the panelists, but we can't do that. Our next panelist, like so many uh, young women, is a single mother, and
Mhm.
she's got a few children. Jackie Taylor is an executive at Ernst and Young and or EY as they now call it. Jackie, how many children do you actually have?
So I have 5 children, ages grades 5 through freshman in college. I also have twins, so my twins are in the 5th grade.
I can't imagine. I can't imagine. And you
Yeah.
work from home.
I do. So I'm working full time from home, and a typical day for me generally starts probably around 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm not out of bed yet, but I'm checking emails on my phone, doing follow ups, and just getting my head in the right mind space. Similar to Petrel and team, I actually have my kids on a schedule. So I know some of the districts gave packets and others have like a schedule from the morning. And I felt like it was helpful to just keep them on a regimen. So they still do their morning routine with getting dressed and breakfast. And then they are in their seats in their respective part of the house by 5 minutes to 9. Our school requires you to check in. And so they literally have to go in and check in. That's probably one of the first things I say. Did everybody check in? And then we get the day going.
I see. All right. So far, what I've heard from the Hibberts is everybody needs their own space. You've talked about a schedule, and they've talked
Mhm.
about a schedule. So I'm beginning to build a picture of how this thing works when it works. And you know what's interesting is all of you make this sound so easy. I can't listen. I have a hard enough time doing my work, which is my work at my house without little
Yeah.
children trying to go to school. So I know we're going to get to the truth in a few minutes. But first, let me bring on who's next. Quab and Tasha Yamoa, who are in Chicago. They're members of First Baptist, but they're hanging out in Chicago because of Tasha's job. Tasha is the head coach at University of Illinois in Chicago women's basketball team, and Quab is a cheerleader who and manager. He started out at Rutgers as a manager of the basketball team. So he's got a lot of practice carrying water and uniforms and whatnot. Quab worked for the federal government, and and they have 2 beautiful young children. Tell us about your children and your day.
Pastor, appreciate the introduction. Thank you, everybody who is online in regards to this particular piece on parenting. As Pastor indicated, my name is Kwabena Yamoa. I'm here with my wife, Natasha, and as an indicator, we are in Chicago. We've been here for the past probably 2 years, and it's been a great opportunity for us to introduce our daughters to a new environment. This COVID has definitely changed and shaped the way in which we interact with them. We're able to support them in a variety of ways. We have 2 daughters. The oldest is 9. Her name is Naraya. The youngest one is 5. Her name is Anaya. On a good day, she thinks she's 20 or 25. And so, we're able to, and as the Hibberts and has been mentioned previously, my wife is up at 5 a.m. Getting her day going, making sure that we have everything in line. The girls and I, we would fall in suit about 8 a.m. To get things going on our end. And I'll let my wife also speak on that piece as well.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Tasha, and my day, definitely say my day begins at 5 a.m. I try to wake up early enough where no one else is awake in the house. I'll start off with prayer and meditation, and then I'll begin my workouts. Our 5-year-old, she has the habit of waking up early enough so she can interrupt my workouts. And so I try to begin with her. I always tell her, mommy's in the lab, so you can either join me working out or you just have to sit and watch me. And so lately she's been really, really good about joining me in workouts. And so if I'm on the rower, she'll hop on the bike. And of course, she's trying to talk. I'll put my headphones back on so that we won't talk as much. But it's a great way to start her burning some of her energy. And then once the second child gets up, our oldest, 9, Naraya, I'll begin, I'll get myself taken care of so that I can get them breakfast, and then we'll begin the day. I think the hardest part is making sure that the 5-year-old stays in a set routine, because she has the propensity to get off track or to get sidetracked by a couple of things. And because I am a head coach, some of the things that I have to be mindful of are recruiting phone calls that occur sometimes as early as 8 a.m., as well as making sure that I'm speaking with our current team as well as my coaching staff. Whenever that happens, the 5-year-old definitely knows how to get away with murder. And so one of the things I'll share that she did to me the other day, I had a virtual call and I put her on ABC Mouse. And ABC Mouse is just a platform, an app that will keep her attention. But now that she has Netflix downloaded on the iPad, she said, "Mommy, I'll be right back." And so I'm talking and I'm trying to make sure I stay in the screen, but at the same time, I'm looking at her. She goes to her bedroom. She does not return. I find her in her bed, covers over her head, and she's watching Netflix. And so what do? Do I lose it? Do I become mom, or am I the teacher? And so I've learned not to take myself so seriously and to give her grace, but also whenever there are any interruptions with our schedule, I can bet my bottom dollar the entire day is thrown off, because the 5-year-old will not rest. And if I'm not careful, she will impact our 9-year-old day in terms of academics. So that's as long as I can keep her on schedule and task, the entire house is fine.
I got it. So the priority is the 5-year-old.
Yes. Unfortunately and fortunately, yes. She runs the house.
Now, do you know what she was watching on Netflix?
She has a couple of Disney shows that she enjoys.
It could be worse on Netflix.
Could be worse. It could be worse.
All right, we'll come back to you as soon as
Okay.
the Wilsons come on and share with us their perspective and their day and their story. Ali and Kim Wilson, good to see you.
Pastor.
Haven't seen y'all in a while.
It's been a minute.
Okay.
So,
Tell us
Pastor,
about, Ali is an insurance executive, and Kim is an attorney. Are you a judge now, or a prosecutor, or?
No, Pastor, I'm an assistant attorney general for the state.
All right. I got to keep up with you. The assistant in what department?
I'm in the division of law.
Wonderful. All right. So Wilsons, tell us about your children and your day.
so we have three daughters. So I'm outnumbered with the amount of women in the house. Our day starts somewhere between 7 and 7:30. I usually get up, make sure that Genevieve, who is our youngest, who's 10 years old, and Ava, who is our middle daughter, who's 17, make sure that they get up, because at 9 o'clock they start school, and the school is all online. My oldest daughter is Victoria, and she's in college, and that, those are, different challenges in and of themselves, because she works on college time. So she's doing her stuff, and the reality is that she lets us know when she needs help. And that's the same thing with Ava, who's our middle daughter. But Genevieve.
How does this affect your work? I mean, you're working from home.
Yeah. So, Pastor, for me, and I'll let Kim speak for herself. For me, most of my work is done. I try to do it in the morning for two reasons. One is that those guys are occupied doing work. The second thing is my mind is much fresher in the morning than it is in the afternoon, after lunch. So I usually do conference calls and stuff like that in the afternoon to the degree that I can control it. And in the morning, I'm doing my work, I'm doing my thinking, I'm sending out emails and things of that nature. Kim, how about you?
So my work, I telework 4 out of 5 days over the week. So I'm in the office on Wednesdays, but I typically try to start my day by 9 o'clock. my work day by 9 o'clock. So that does give me some time to make sure that Genevieve and Ava are up and about doing what they need to be doing. And so I really try to let the girls know if I have a telephone conference. We do find ourselves, as a lot of the other panelists have, we have our own space where we work. And so I do, when I'm getting ready for a telephone conference or something like that, I do try to let everyone know I'm on a telephone conference. It's primarily to make sure that shenanigans don't happen while we're on phone calls. I also appreciate when I'm on phone calls, when I hear people that have kids, that I try to be respectful and show them mercy and understand that we're all kind of in the same boat, which is we have children who are also learning at home, and not to pass judgment. Why didn't you, put your kids somewhere where they're not disturbing us? It's, for me, I don't find it disturbing at all, but that's pretty much how we work. And I do find that I am I'm very guarded about my time. So if I start work at 9 o'clock, I am trying to finish by 5 o'clock, because I want to make sure that, when it comes to home, that those things we need to devote for home, we can do. And I think what we found as part of this is that we've really tried to find things that the girls enjoy doing outside of their school. One of the best carrots that we found, kind of from the stick and carrot perspective, is that if Genevieve gets her work done and she gets it done well, she gets to watch two things. And they're both shows she loves. She loves Cosmos. So she likes to listen and learn about black holes. So she gets her work done, she gets an hour of Cosmos. That works. And then after that, then she gets to watch her second love, which is dance. And so she watches one of the reality shows, World of Dance. And so we find that, we're trying to, with all of them, find those things that make them tick, those things that they enjoy, and find ways that they can continue doing that once they've kind of gotten through their school day.
Yeah.
So one thing to add real quick, Pastor, is that I've been kind of, working from home for the last 3 to 4 years. So we are fortunate in that we have a routine, and I'm proud to say that I've been sort of Mr. Mom for that period of time, and have kept everything in line. But as the folks that said, right before us, in the afternoon, Genevieve is on, and it's running behind her a little bit, and she's doing her stuff, and she's, in whatever she's in. So that part of the day can be a challenge, and that's all right, because that works for, my strength and Kim's.
Yeah. Okay. Now I want all of the panelists to come on, and while they're getting their clicks right and their cameras adjusted, everybody come back. We have a poll. We're doing a poll. Question number 1 is about to pop up. While you're waiting to start the round of questions, would you just answer question number 1 on the poll? Yeah. This question has to do with whether or not you believe I'm talking now specifically about First Baptist, whether we should be thinking about more events. The frustration in pulling this together, folks, was that you all are so busy. I was afraid to ask people to add anything to their schedule, even if it's good, so I need to know if we should factor these kinds of support activities in for parents. Yes or no? All right. It won't take long to get the results, I'll tell you that. Wow, 99% said yes. So, okay, that's a no-brainer. And you should know that the one comment is having a schedule. This is from Trayshawn. Having a schedule is definitely helpful. And that's one of the major take. All of you agree that you need a schedule. All of you agree on space, specific space that is both yours and theirs. And all of you agree that there is some need for structure. But none of you seem to have any problems, well, except one child, sticking to their assigned schedule. If class starts at 9 o'clock, it seems that your children are committed to it. Is that okay? So let's talk about what happens when you find that you're working and you're busy, but out of the corner of your eye, like Tasha said, you can see that your child is off the schedule. How do you handle it?
I can kind of speak to that. So I have 5 children, and 2 of them have ADHD. And so it was really important in the beginning to do that schedule. I didn't just pop into the schedule in week 2 of sheltering in place. I did the schedule from the first day they said that. And so that structure was important to them since everything else changed because it was hard to adjust. They eat all day. So the same way the teachers in the classroom will have the kids raise their hand and say, I have to use the bathroom. Literally, I'm like, why are you up? And the answer is, well, I'm getting a snack. I'm getting the grapes. Or so I think that, the redirection is probably one of the challenges on being on a call, multitasking, and just constantly redirecting. But I think that's just par for the course, just keeping them redirected. The last thing I'll say is that one of the things that I did to adjust to that was one morning after breakfast, I had like these little snack bowls, and I'm like, here's your snack, here's your juice. So hopefully it minimized the reasons to have to get up.
Okay, Gilbert, you wanted to speak.
Yeah, so Pastor, great question. So I would just say that one of the challenges that you have is that the dynamics of learning are changing so much. So when you learn in a classroom and it's teacher led, that's a different instruction, different pedagogical model, if you will, of how we receive information. Right. Now you've got students that for the first time, in many cases, have to open the book you bought and read the information and learn on their own and process it and ask questions and figure out what they know and what they don't know and determine where their help is. So you can create the schedule, but now there's other supports that they need because they're learning how to learn on their own in a way that they have never had to before. So I think that there's some opportunities there, but we also want to try to manage and understand that that's a process, that they will bump their head through that process, give them some grace through that. And it's more important that through the journey that they learn how to learn than they actually learn the material because it'll come around spirally.
Right.
Yeah. What's obvious by now we've got over a couple hundred people in this session. And what's obvious to many of them is that all of you have a particular lifestyle. And this whole idea of having space may not be for everyone what it is for you. If you're living in close quarters and you don't have a guest room and a TV room and a finished basement, where you can all spread out, how do you suggest people dealing with this space issue if they're living in tight quarters?
So the one thing, Pastor, we talked about routines, a schedule, and I think everyone talked about a schedule, but, scheduling office hours, time that you can actually use the computer. The difference with home instruction or remote learning is that the learning can go and occur any time of the day. So it's not a particular, you have to do it in the morning. It's whenever space is available. So you have one computer, we try to manage that computer almost as if you have the silent for the computer today for this hour. So having a tight schedule and being disciplined with that schedule, and also try to keep the kids in a routine as well, get them up in the morning, and hopefully try to have them emulate your schedule as well. So there aren't any laps where they aren't, going around doing things and by themselves or alone. So hopefully in a tight spaces like that, you can actually ensure that if you have a tight schedule time, you can have a break. Schedule time, you can do family time together, go outside. I think that's the best way to organize in tight, close quarters.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's an important consideration. And the reality is your strategy is not dictated by your spaces, but rather you want your spaces to be under your control and serve your strategy. Yeah, that's good. Here's another one. Here's someone who works for the Department of Corrections and is a single parent, has a child in kindergarten that does distance learning for a full day. We should just pause and pray for her right now. Just stop and pray. She has math, English, social studies, phonics, gym, music, and Spanish in kindergarten. All I did in kindergarten was finger paint, and I failed finger painting. Oh Lord. And we have to be on at 9 o'clock. However, her learning requires most of the parent's attention, and the parent has to keep her job.
Yes.
Well, I'll take that. I think it's really, really important that with the kindergarten kid, you try to maximize her energy first. And so, for example, on a rainy day, I will scrap the schedule and I'll take the kids out and I'll let them run in puddles because it's something different for them, something they would never get a chance to do just on a regular school day if they were going into a school building. And then I found that those 20 or 30 minutes where I just let them run and have fun, I have been able to get the most out of the 5-year-old, and she's ready to learn. It's really, really different. But the more I stay in a structured based routine, it's harder for her. But when I'm loose and I allow her to move around, she is really, really good about coming back to learning.
So this idea of structure and space and scheduling, it really starts with the parent.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
It's hard to impose a schedule, a structure without a schedule and a structure yourself.
Yes.
Okay.
You,
The only other thing, Pastor, that I would add to the person who had the question, who's a single parent, is there are resources. I know in Hillsborough, the local YMCA has created a program where they have recruited volunteer high school students and college students that can kind of go side by side and virtually coach with your child to guide them through activities to keep them engaged. So I'm not quite sure if that person working for DOC was working from home or had to be out of the home, but tapping into family who you're quarantining with and friends, but also some of these community resources might be a help.
Well,
So-
that's one of the commissioners' R's, resources.
Mhm.
And sometimes resources are not traditional resources, but I think we have to wake up in the morning assuming there is a resource somewhere and I need to find it.
yeah.
And we have, by the way, Commissioner, your staff sent us some resources that we're going to distribute to everybody that's involved tonight. We have everybody's email address. We're going to send out email to all of you to ensure that all of the resources that people have sent us, we send on to you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, so I just want to interject real quick. I think it's important that you reach out to the school if you're having some challenges, and just even juggling, because I think the whole work balance and family, I think that's real. And some of the things we're getting from the field, which is the school and the districts and teachers, is the challenge they're having being a parent and also to educate. So I think it's important that you reach out to that school, whether it's a teacher or a counselor, and say, hey, you know what, slow down a little bit on the work because of my schedule. And I think, and I go back to the humanity piece. I've been talking a lot about really the essence of learning versus the business of learning. And I think we need to get away from the business and look at, because the model we've had is a model of something that's a system, brick and mortar. We have a brand new system in place and everyone's learning on the job. So I think if you raise your hand and say, hey, you know what, this is a bit too much. Maybe instead of me giving 5 hours to that child a week, let me just get 2. You modify an instruction, it makes it easy for everyone. So I think resources just contacting your school and just say, hey, I need some help.
Yeah, that's very important. I've spoken this past week with at least 6 superintendents of school, and all of them have said to me they spend a big chunk of their time answering questions. And it's all in now. I'm finding the superintendents, assistant superintendents, learning disability specialists, teachers, guidance counselors, everybody is all hands on deck, and their primary responsibility is to help you be successful. They work for you. So you're not imposing on a teacher
That's right.
or district
No.
to pick up the phone and call them and say, listen, there's a question here, for instance, that says she has to hand in work daily. It requires the parent taking a picture of her completed work and uploading her work to turn it in. You may have to work it out with the teacher to do that every other day.
Yes.
The rule, everything is negotiable.
That's
And
right.
all of this is unprecedented. And so
Mhm.
you and the teacher have the right, just as you would if they were in a building, you have the right to work out what's best for you and your child. That's a
Amen.
great point, Commissioner. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Patrice Harley just said amen. So she's just saying amen. Thank you, Jesus, for the conversation. Let's see, who else do we have here? Excellent point. Oh, excellent, about the children learning how to learn. Children learning how to learn. Before I finish the question, I believe a new normal is emerging
Yeah.
in the whole society. It certainly is emerging for the church, and it may be that this stay-at-home season might help us reconfigure education in a way that should have happened 100 years ago. Because I mean, let's face it, folks, education hasn't changed significantly, in the last 100 years, but children
Long
have.
time.
And so this may be an opportunity for parents to educate schools about educating their children more so than schools educating their children. It says, as a biggest parent, as a parent, my biggest concern about remote learning, assessing how much my children are retaining and how much more should I add to the school curriculum to ensure retention is occurring. So what are you folks doing besides using the classroom work that your children have to do as a kind of virtual babysitter?
Well, I'll take a little bit of that, Pastor. There's a couple things we've discovered. One is that, our youngest child needed a little bit more work in her math. So we've been a little proactive there to make sure she gets her basic math facts, sharing different resources with her so that she can really work on that overall. But regardless, whether it's her or my middle daughter, history is something that's missing. The lack of understanding of history, and especially history of people of color, is just not there. So we're taking the time to educate them on that a little bit, sharing some of the knowledge that we personally have, things that we can get from church, other resources around history, and trying to put it in context. Because quite frankly, our children get so-called history from TikTok and things like that, and they don't have really they can't really figure out what's real and what's not. And I think that really has been incumbent on Kim and I to really start teaching our kids a little bit more, not only of our history but history in general.
Yeah.
Sometimes they barely know who the president is. So we really try to make sure that they get focused that way.
Great. Anybody else?
Pastor, I would just add as well. I think one of the opportunities that we have is not just ensuring that our kids are getting a certain amount of learning, but that they're getting some depth in their learning, right? And so that they're getting meaning in their learning. And so, the reality is that I probably saw our sons probably about 5 hours a day max. I saw them about an hour in the morning, hour and a half in the morning, maybe 3 hours at night. The majority line share of the day they were out. And so by the time I talked to them saying like, hey, Caleb, yo, what happened in the day? What you learned? They're like, it was just a good day, because he's burnt out and he's tired. But now I'm seeing the work that's happening. So now I'm like, well, let's talk a little bit about Middle Eastern history. Let's talk a little bit about your Spanish class. Let's now try to get some meaning out of that. And I think it's forcing them to learn a little deeper, because now we can all learn together. So if you're reading a certain book, or he's reading a classic or reading Shakespeare, I can get into it and ask the questions in ways that I couldn't, because we just, they were tired and worn out by their long days. So I think that the opportunity to make more meaning of the work is a huge opportunity now that we can take advantage of.
I agree. I feel like
and with my kids, they're kind of, sorry, go ahead, Petrell.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think you're just relearning, almost reestablishing and learning and creating a newer relationship with your child.
Yeah.
You're getting to know this person because you spent so much time running and being overscheduled.
Right.
Yeah, I was just saying with my children being kinesthetic, it's so important to make sure the learning is, fun for them. So what we've done, Pastor, is we did a top chef competition. And, with the quarantine, we didn't have all the food items in the house anyway. So I just picked a few food items, and all of them went on and made things. So they had to measure, they had to work together. So there are ways for them to learn through fun activities while we're quarantined. There's also outschool.com that has these short vignettes. I had the kids attend. Mark Cuban did a free kids with AI session. And so I was like, I'm registering you all, attend that. So I think that this sheltering in place is giving us an opportunity to just be creative about how we parent and what learning is for them.
Yeah, and I think those kinds of resources, we're going to need some kind of, I'll call it maybe a clearinghouse, where parents can go to both share those kinds of resources and to discover those kinds of resources. For instance, here's a comment from Nicole. one of her teachers agreed to accept homework uploads at the end of the week because it accommodated her schedule.
Yes.
And a lot of parents just wouldn't know to ask for that if they knew another parent had asked for it and they were successful. Commissioner, is there a part of your website that has resources for parents that they can tap into to discover things they may not know about?
Yes, I actually have a website, and we're going to provide the link. I have our resource. We actually redesigned our website for this pandemic crisis because we want to make it easier for parents to access information. So now we have a parent section, a student section, an educator section as well. And so it allows us to really connect with parents. It's the resources there. We hope that everyone goes out and really looks and find it, whether it's Department of Education, whether it's your own resources, whether connection to friends and family who are going through the same thing. It's going to force us to go from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset, because whatever we thought about education, we have to think anew now, right?
Right.
So now you're talking about, the Hippids talked about the connection between their child and having that relationship. Well, now that's a co-labor right there, collaboration. You're actually working on a project together. So I think the growth mindset is there. We're going to look at things differently now. And I think that's a blessing in disguise, to be honest with you.
I think it is too. Here's another. Misty says that she has a 5-year-old and a 9-year-old. The 9-year-old has his virtual school schedule, but the 5-year-old is struggling to focus on learning. I want him to be prepared for kindergarten, but he's not too interested. What can I do to keep him into it? Also, I feel both kids have too much screen time, whether it be for school, for fun, and how much should they really be using?
I think we can answer that. We have the
I
same
think that's too.
same age groups. So with what we've done, and we figured out the particular learning style for our youngest is while she's working with my wife will play some music, and that allows the youngest to listen to something that she's enjoying, and then also get in tune with the schoolwork. With the oldest, she loves to read. She's engaged in that, but she's hesitant on the math aspect. And so what we found that there's a couple applications, for example, Adventure Academy, which the school has provided for us to use with them, and she'll go on there and enjoy her time, so that it is something that she's enjoying while doing. You talked a little bit earlier about some of the activities and learning to mathematically or enhancing yourself. My wife has taken on the role of working with the children and while she's cooking, so that they also can measure things, learn in a different format to make it novel for them as well. The second aspect, where you talked about screen time, we found that our children were attempting to use the tablets more recreationally than academically. And so what I thought was a brilliant idea for me, and after you hear this, you'll begin to laugh. I put a code on the tablet on an iPad so that our youngest wouldn't be on the iPad for too long. And so about an hour or two each day. Yesterday evening, she was on an iPad, and it was over, I think, 3 hours. So I'm trying to figure out, what just occurred. And so she turns to me, and I say, hey, how long have you been on the iPad? She said, oh, I can't remember. But she said, I figured out your passcode. And I said, you figured out the passcode?
This is the 5-year-old.
5-year-old. And then not only did she figure it out, she was sharing the tips of the trade to the oldest daughter. And so step by step blow. So we're like, come on, this is ridiculous. But I have to laugh at myself. This is our 5-year-old teaching us how to become better parents. And so us being flexible, not rigid in terms of how she's growing, but allowing us to enjoy the time, but setting better parameters and better controls moving forward.
Yeah, we have a few more questions, but while I'm scrolling through, share with us some of your anxieties. What has created for you the kind of anxiety that that concerns you a bit, besides a 5-year-old hacking your iPad and changing your codes? Besides that.
No, that's a true question.
Yeah.
Even yesterday, when we found out that the state was going to shut down the schools here for the rest of the year, we had angst about sharing that with our oldest daughter and our youngest daughter, because their friends are there. their support system is there as well. But we want to be transparent and open with her. And then we wanted her to share her feelings and emotions about what she's experiencing, because we don't want them to bottle up and feel like we're not there to support them in this particular endeavor. It's tough on both sides. It's not just tough on the parents, it's tough on the children. And
Yeah.
so us being open to give them that space to laugh, to cry, to be angry about the situation, but try to find a way forward so that we could all grow within this platform. You know, we're making the most out of this opportunity, and we're looking at it, you know, from a positive lens to continue to grow as a family, but still feeling angst about the situation.
Yeah, during our youth team meeting last night, the number one thing that the students said about this whole experience is that they miss their friends.
Yeah, yeah.
They miss going to school because they miss being around their friends, and that is a stressful, potentially impactful on behavior kind of reality. One of our questions talked about the child becoming a little rebellious and disrespectful during this season, and some of it could stem from the fact that they're used to, you know, having fun with their friends, and now it's almost a kind of incarceration. Um,
Yeah, I can speak to that, Pastor. That's probably one of my biggest challenges, seeing how everybody's reacting differently. In the beginning, you know, the first week or two was one thing, but now that we've gotten to this point, it's gotten past the novelty, and I have had everything from acting out to retreating to the room, and so you got to pull them out of that quiet space. So I can
Right.
empathize with Quab on that, just pulling them out. My I'm a management consultant, right? So if you tell me I'm bored, I'm going to come up with 3 or 4 things that you could be doing with your time to be productive. But one of the things I've learned is I kind of have to let them sit in that emotion and say, yeah, I know that sucks that it was your first year of college,
Yeah.
and you know, you're not even able to finish the year in the dorm. You miss your friends. And so just being a parent and not wanting to rescue, but just, you know, letting them emote.
Yeah, yeah. Commissioner, I don't want to miss this one because we're almost out of time. Ed wants to know, what does the state plan to do with advancing students to the next grade since a third of the school year has essentially been lost? Will students repeat? Will there be remediation opportunities? I know you're very concerned about that. And
So we're thinking about the reopening plan and looking at guidelines throughout the state, but those decisions you'll find within the local district, right? So there's a lot of home rules when you have New Jersey education. So a lot of those decisions were made by the recommendations of the superintendent, and the board of education will adopt those recommendations. However, we're seeing across the board that people are looking at options such as pass fail, looking at options such as pass and incomplete. Because the goal is that you want to make sure you finish that. And people are really thinking of ways that's not going to penalize or be punitive to the student, but also respect the fact that educators are working every day to educate them. So how do you come with that delicate balance? And these are the conversations that districts are having. If you have a particular question, please, I advise you to reach out to your school to have those questions and say, what are your plans or your strategies for my child, especially if your child is one of those individuals that you see may be falling behind, right? Because a lot of concerns are we going to the next grade. I know that from a state standpoint, a lot of the legislators are asking us those questions, and we're trying to find ways, whether it's looking at mandatory summer school for a lot of our Title I districts using Title I funds, whether it's looking at maybe having programs that have specific subject areas that you can actually, whether it's algebra or whether it's, you know, different subjects, you can actually go in and maybe do courses throughout the summer. So a lot of people are thinking about this now, but as it gets closer, we will come up with some more concrete guidelines to kind of make sure that everyone is being responsible when it comes to grading.
yeah. And again, when you do contact the schools, don't assume that they have an answer because they're trying to survive. This has never happened before. There's no handbook to go to. They didn't learn this in college. And this is so much uncharted waters that what you probably will be asked to do is bring some suggestions in light of the needs of your own child. You know, we're in this together. What
Yes,
other
thank you.
anxieties have begun to emerge in your household as a result of this stay at home? What about the Wilsons?
I think one of the main anxieties, and it's not really, I don't think it's a real huge pressure, but I think there is some level of just making sure that our kids are really where we want them to be, not only academically, but emotionally and spiritually as well. So I don't know if I call it an anxiety, but it's more, there's an attention to that. We are intentional about, praying together and spending time together. So we really want to make sure that I don't know if we necessarily have them on track, but we want to make sure that all parts of that, their emotional, their educational, their spiritual, and their physical growth are all kind of dealt with in the
Yeah,
midst of this.
yeah. Hibbets?
I think from an anxiety standpoint, I think it's just what the future looks like for them. My son and my son's biggest goal right now is playing baseball, right? And so he was looking forward to spring training. He was
Yeah,
looking forward to going out of state and playing and all of this kind of stuff. And you know, the opportunity that we have though is to continue to show them that the world is bigger. I just got off the phone with my cousin from Panama. And as I spoke to my cousin and heard what was happening in Panama with the coronavirus, I mean, businesses are being shut down. The airlines, don't know when they're going to open again. Kids, school is closed. It's not like virtualization because virtualization is not a possibility. So we have some unique opportunities. We have a unique fortune to be living in this country in this time and space. So as much as we see the anxiety, we try to also balance that with them understanding that they are blessed and fortunate to be in this place and space where you can go into your room and go onto your laptop and go onto your monitor and figure out and do the thing. So hopefully we use that to temper some of the anxiety and recognize that we will get through this together, and we're going to continue to support each other together.
Right, right,
yeah.
absolutely.
As,
Yeah.
as all of you know, what I've been doing for the last month has been to um, expand the church's ministries to make virtual ministry effective, whether it's worship on Sunday, Bible study, and the like. And as I have been thinking about this area of our church and the larger community, I have been thinking about the stresses that both parents and children are facing, particularly since we don't know how long this is going to last, and even the post COVID-19 season, we're not sure what kind of how we're going to come through it, how we're going to get back to whatever we thought normal was, how we're going to handle the new normal, because there's some displacement that'll happen. And so I'm asking all of you to pray for me, because the church is responsible for the spiritual, emotional, psychological, social aspects of our development. And what I want, we have again about 200 people that took time tonight. I'm interested in knowing. We have full-time counselor on staff, and we have an extended counseling staff. If anybody who is with us tonight is interested in maybe talking to someone because of emerging anxiety or stress, let me know that. This is not for data. What we're going to do with this information, if you say yes, I'd like to talk to somebody, we're going to deploy our counseling staff to contact you and then to help you identify a resource that's beyond education, to help to walk with you and pray with you and support you in your efforts to do this homeschool plus work reality. So if you say yes, if only, I'm not concerned about numbers, but if one person says yes, tomorrow morning we'll be in touch with you and begin the process of identifying what kind of support we can offer. Because I don't want to just have a conversation. I'm in the business of doing ministry. All right. So listen, it's 8:30. I promised 1 hour. There's so much more. We have more single parent issues we've got to deal with. I think we're going to need more precise strategies around um, the small domicile where people don't have a lot of space. I think we need more capacity building to teach parents how to interact with schools. I know back in the old Title I days, Commissioner, parental involvement was mandated by the law. And we used to have workshops around the country teaching,
Mhm.
especially low-income parents, how to call the school, what to say, what not to say, what to
Right.
expect. And I think that was an important aspect, and I think all of us will need that now. So I'm committed to leading the church to make this a core part of our ministry, and also to make sure that what we do benefits the community at large. Listen, we have a lot of questions. What we're going to do is ask the panelists to help us answer these questions. This, of course, you have plenty of time. So we have a few questions specifically for Commissioner Repollet. We'll get them to you.
Please
And
do.
I always like to answer questions to the best of our ability, but I don't have any small children. Praise the Lord. Thank you, Jesus. Um, but all of us together, and we have other parents that were willing to come on tonight, but we had to limit the number. You'd be proud to know, Commissioner, the superintendent and the assistant superintendent of Plainfield wanted to be here tonight. But what we're going to do is we're going to have a session just for teachers, because a few teachers have some things they like to know and say. And we're going to have another session for administrators, because this is, even if schools reopen, let's say May 16th, which is not
Mhm.
long, but if they did, our lives will never be the same. Our children's lives will never be the same. Our church will never be the same, and certainly education will never be the same. And it's our this is our mission. Our parents went through world wars. Our grandparents went through Great Depression. This is our generational challenge, and I believe that together we can make some good things happen. So thank you Wilsons, thank you Hibberts, thank you Yamoas, thank you
Thank you.
Taylor, and God bless you, Commissioner, with all the responsibility you have. Thank you for spending this hour with us.